This particular one here is actually in more of a spear-pointed shape. Now, the spear-point collar was very popular during the 30s and 40s, and this particular one is a bit of an odd-looking shirt. As you'll notice, the collar is not attached. That's because these were detachable collared shirts. Became quite popular during the 19th century. These shirts were very good, especially for the housewives who are having to clean them. You see, you could wear a fresh collar each day, giving the appearance of a fresh, clean shirt without needing to wash the main shirt body as often. That's why many of them actually came with more than one collar. Now, some people actually used to twin these with a different type of collar, and we have one of them here. Now, this is what's called a stiff starch detachable collar. So it's been heavily starched with a powder starch mix. It's then been pressed and polished. Now, the polish they use on these is like a gumbo polish. Can't get it anymore because they tend to use whale fat in it, so that's something you can't really guess. But it used to give it this beautiful, smooth finish. But these almost feel like plastic, but they're not. They are actually 100% cotton linen. Now, you're probably wondering, how do you attach one of these? Well, you're going to need two studs. These studs in particular. So as you can see, you have a small and a large one. Now, the small one used to go in the back because it would go through one layer of fabric in the back collar and then through the one buttonhole in the back of the collar there. The other one would go through 4 layers of fabric, the 2 on the shirt body and the 2 on the front. But to make it easier, this part here at the front does actually pivot, so it makes it easier to get through. But that does mean that bit is what's against your neck. And I can tell you now, when you yawn, it feels like somebody's just poked their finger into your throat. So they are a bit uncomfortable to begin with. Also, if you're wearing one of these on a very hot day, you can get a little hot under the collar. If you ever wonder where that saying comes from, it very much comes from these. Now obviously, something like that, you need to store in a stud box. And we actually have one of them here. And as you'll see, there is a lovely little bit of 1930s humour on there. Comment below if you get it, but don't worry if you don't, I'm sure someone in the comments does. Now moving on, accessories. Men used to accessorise a lot, and you can see how I dress at the moment. There are quite a few extra bits of almost jewellery that I'm wearing. And you can see a couple of examples of them here. We've got some of the actual chain link cufflinks at the bottom there. We've even got what was known as a collar bar. Now that would actually pinch the collar of your shirt behind the knot of your tie, so it would make the tie protrude out, accentuating that knot a little. We've also got some of the actual sleeve bands here. As you see, I'm wearing some of them now. They'll help to keep your sleeves off, maybe sort of cut off your actual wrist there. So especially if you're doing any work, you're not going to get too grubby there. Mainly because a lot of shirts tend to be one size, kind of fits all in the body. It was just the neck that was a different size, so your sleeves might be a bit long. Now these particular ones here are actually made by a company called Lamborn. Now they were actually quite popular and have become very popular again actually. Same with the detachable collar there, they have become popularised by shows like Peaky Blinders. More people now are starting to buy these items again and wear them, so they become kind of traditional. Now I've got some of the different ties that they would have had here, some from companies like Grenville and Tootle, which were very popular names. Now this particular one in the middle is actually from a company called Berkeley's, again very popular, but this was actually an American import. And it's got a bit of a unique feature to it. I'll show you the lining of it. Have a look at that. Now, for any of you out there who are wondering, why on earth would you have a tie that nice with camo lining? Well, that is actually US airborne parachute silk. So when you watch any old footage from the 1940s of any of the parachuters coming down, then you'll notice the pattern is actually the same. So very interesting feature of that particular tie there. Now moving on, we have something that was a must-have. Anyone, men, women, children, everyone wore a hat. It was a fashion faux pas to go out and not have a hat on your head. I've got a couple of examples of them here. Now obviously we've got your traditional British bowler hat here. Very similar to the American derby, but one key difference with this. These were almost like a predecessor to the hard hat. The original actual bowler hat was designed to protect the wearer's head, especially if you're on horseback. And these are solid. Literally, it is like a hard hat on your head. But very good, especially on a dreary day like we're experiencing at the moment. Helps keep your head nice and dry. We also have here a very nice example of a trilby. Now, interesting feature with these, this pinch detail on the front is actually formed by the wearer. When you buy these hats, they tend to look more like the actual bowler hat here, nice and domed. But you use these 3 fingers to form the pinch on there. So every hat has a bit of a customization by the owner. But then you've got your more casual 5-dart flat cap here, which these were actually quite wide. So when you wear them, they do stick out quite wide on your head. Now obviously, what's one of the main things you're going to come into a shop like this for? A suit. We've got a prime example of one of those suits right here on the mannequin. Now just to let you know, a suit suit like that, which is an off-the-rail suit, it's not custom made, but still made from very fine cloth, will actually set you back about £17. That's 17. Doesn't sound like a lot of money today, but just to give you a bit of context, that was roughly 4 months' wages for a Dublin police officer. And they were paid quite a substantial amount of money, so that was a very expensive suit. For the people who wore them, they would get their full wear out of it. That suit, it would be a day-to-day business suit, it would become a casual suit, then a gardening suit, but you'll even probably end up wearing that when you're fixing your car. They would use it till there's nothing left of it. But obviously that's your day wear. Next to that, you'll see a nice example of sort of the evening wear that they would have worn. So that there is what you wear over night time. You've got your flannelette pyjamas and your check woolen dressing gown, or house coat as some people call them. However, that's something you'd see more of your older generation would wear. Someone like myself would want to go for something a little bit more flash. I've got a little example here for you. Fresh from the Orient, Oriental silk. I mean, have a look at that. Very swish. Beautiful royal blue and gold. That's more my style, I think, than that. And I think some of the younger people out there would probably like this as well. So, do we have any questions?
Yeah, I would really like to know, what is that contraption there behind you?
This is a very interesting contraption. Does anyone know what this is? Comment below if you do. What do you think it could be? Well, I'll let you know. It has something to do with hats. This is actually a hat stretcher. When you buy a brand new hat, it's like a new pair of shoes. Sometimes it's going to need to be broken in, so it's going to be a bit uncomfortable. And when you're wearing a hat, if it's a bit too tight, it can cause really bad headaches as it presses against the front of your head. So with a felt hat like this, you could steam it, pop it on the stretcher, and stretch it out by a fraction of an inch. Just giving you that extra bit of space, so it's more comfortable to wear. Just pop it on, turn the crank handle, and we'll be able to stretch it. And it's quite good, it's actually got the different measurements down there on the bottom, so if you don't know what your actual hat size is, well, if you know what it is in centimetres, you can work it out from that. Any other questions?
Yeah, we've had someone ask, what are those things just behind you?
These here, they're spats. Now, these you'd wear over your shoes, that helped stop you getting stones in them, but it also gave the illusion of a much more earlier button-fastened boot, which was very popular in the Edwardian era. Because for some people in their jobs, they would still wear older-fashioned clothes. It was kind of like a traditionalism. And I mean, when we're looking at older-fashioned shoes, I bet that everyone on this chat either owns or knows someone who owns a pair of shoes from this time period. And again, we're going to go back to those American imports, Converse. Now, Converse have a rich history dating all the way back to 1908. But the optical white Converse that you can still get today, which are actually, you know, they're classic Converse with the blue and red racing stripe on them, well, they were actually released back in 1936. They were actually the official sneakers, as we should call it for the Americans, so the official sneakers of the US Olympics team at the Berlin Olympic Games, all the way through, I think, about 1938. And the black and white ones, they were released just after the Second World War. So if you own a pair of those Converse, you're actually wearing a pair of 1930 sneakers. So how about that?
I actually have one more question that someone's asked and it's just caught my eye. I know it's not a pocket watch, but what is that little gold chain you're wearing on your waistcoat?
This here is actually what's called a double Albert fob chain. So I do actually have my pocket watch on the one side, but I also have another interesting one. Does anyone know what that could be there? Shall I let you know? This is called a Vesta case. And what this would be used for, well, as you may find out later on, almost everybody back in the 30s smoked. So how are you going to put your cigarettes? This is the perfect item. Inside it holds your matches, and on the bottom you have the striker. So you can literally take your match out, flip it, strike, and light. And it's better than having a lighter in your pocket, no chance of any oil leaking out from that. Okay, well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your tour, and I hope to see you all here in real life sometime soon. So take care now.
Thank you. So, coming up next on our little tour, I mean, hopefully the weather has improved somewhat, but we're going to take a little look at some of our vintage vehicles. So here comes the very lovely Steve, who is dealing with this horrendous rain right now, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about the kind of vehicles you would have seen in the 1930s.
Hi, as Emily said, my name's Steve. I'm part of the transport group here at the museum. The museum also has, as well as 2 cars in the show today, a number of vehicles such as trolley buggies, motor buggies, vintage cars, motorcycles, and quite often you can see them running around the site with people like myself driving them. So but tonight we're going to show 2 vehicles that were built in the Black Country. Both vehicles are actually over 90 years old. So forgive them if they don't want to play in this weather. I think they'll probably rather stay asleep. So come with me, come on, let's have a look. We'll show you a little bit more in depth of the vehicles you'd normally see in the museum, normally parked up. So come on down, come and have a look. So the first vehicle we're going to show you is a vehicle that was built in Tipton and Dudley, and it's called a Bean. The Bean was quite a smart, upmarket executive sedan. It was a sports coupe in its day, with a vinyl roof that would fold back for those summer days. A bit of height of luxury, and George Bean had great aspirations to take on the likes of the Ford and the Model T and make his product the best that anybody could have. So again, let's show a little bit more in depth some of the characteristics about the car. So you will have seen the thing as you came in, the front of the vehicle. The actual grille was there to make a statement. It came with a luxury spare that fitted on the car. And inside the car, you'll notice that the handbrake and the gear lever are both on the driver's side. This would make it a little bit awkward for the driver to get in, so quite often the easiest method was actually to go through the passenger side. If you look at the bottom where the pedals are, they are not quite the same as the modern day pedals. The middle one was actually the accelerator, whereas the left was the clutch, the right was the brake, a little bit different to modern day cars. You also notice as you look around the car, safety wasn't really given a great consideration. There's no seatbelts in that car, as well as no power steering. But then again, it's an old vehicle, I'd say over 90 years old, so therefore I think we'll give it a bit of slack. So if you look at the door here, you could see that this was quite a luxury car. It got B on it for being. It was going to make you know that you're really driving a quality vehicle for your money. And this being a four-seater, there was ample room for it in the back. And when it was new, it was around £500. The company was started by a gentleman called AJ Harper and Sons, and Mr. Bean joined the company later after marrying one of his daughters. So as we carry on around the car, room for luggage in this vehicle was not inside or in the boot. It was actually a luggage rack that folded down, and then you tied your luggage to that by means of straps. Hopefully you've kept it dry by keeping covers over it. You'll also notice there a fuel gauge. So the fuel gauge was actually on the outside of the vehicle rather than the inside, which is very useful when you were filling it up, so you didn't have to rely on the gauge in the vehicle. Again, quite advanced for its time. So moving on, again, really easy access for inside, and you can see I've got my umbrella ready and also my picnic basket to take me on those lovely trips to the seaside. So you've seen the Bean, you've seen what it does. Let's move on and have a look at another little car that we've used on TikTok, a little AJS, which is quite apt really, which is standing here in the Black Country Museum right outside Harthill, and I'm sure Emily will show you more of that later. AJS were more commonly known for motorcycles of the day rather than vehicles, but they took on a contract with another company in Wolverhampton called Clino, and built bodies for Clino and then progressed themselves into motor vehicles. So come on, let's have a look at this car.